Hey, this week we are together in the same place, and we are going to be talking about creative collaboration, when it feels good, when it doesn't feel good.
And peeing your pants.
Yay! Join us. We're two childhood best friends talking about creative mindset.
I'm Emily Hatch.
And I'm Carrie Schaefer, and this is Honestly, Dear Listener.
Honestly, dear listener.
Woo! Hope you're happy. I don't think that's the right.
I think I did it wrong.
I hope you're happy.
Yeah, I don't know it.
That's okay. We don't have to put that in. Or we could.
My friend. Hi.
I think you may have noticed that something is different than how it usually is. We're usually in two different paneled windows because we don't live in the same town.
And now we're here in the same town.
Mm-hmm.
This little cow town I like to call New York City.
Just a little blip on a map.
Yeah.
Originally, the reason why I was coming here was because we were going to have a writing weekend.
We were going to try to have our first writer's retreat.
Where we get together, we hole up in a coffee shop somewhere, and we write together, but separately. We parallel play, if you will. She would write on her personal projects. I would write on my personal projects, and it didn't work out that way this time.
It derailed in a really lovely way. But initially, one of us blocked off their calendar and then forgot that that's why they blocked off their calendar, and then booked a lot of shit to do because they were like, I have free time. Yay. And that person is the person who lives here in New York. So the first day I was just really super busy, and we were like, okay, let's just talk about some planning stuff because we've got these chunks of time that first day. And then it kind of ended up that we were like planning a lot.
We're like, we can always write on our individual projects when we're not together, but we're together. So let's make some stuff. So that's kind of what today we're talking about, is the process of having a creative collaborator and what it's like to make stuff. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay, so this week has ended up being a lot different, which at first I was a little disappointed about. But then as we went along, I was like, actually, yes, and this might be great. And we ended up being able to play and get into a state of flow with each other that felt really good, that was arguably better than our original idea. So
some of that I think is like us remaining open. We were talking about the podcast first and kind of being like, we feel like we're getting, and it's not stale, it was just like, our biggest goal was to release episodes every week for a year, and we reached that goal. And then we kind of have like a couple months after that, we're like, this isn't enough now. And we're like talking about the same topics, which, as you're learning, you kind of have to hear the same thing in a billion different ways. I think that's what life is. But we're like, okay, let's talk about how we could restructure this. Then we started talking about, what do we really just want to do? Like, we kind of just want to fuck around. And then, like, what does that look like? And how does that tie into everything? Carrie was like, okay. We were at the table, and she just got a pad of paper. And she was like, no bad ideas. Let's talk about everything we want to make. That was my Carrie impression.
Do I sound like
everything
we want to make?
Yeah,
that's good.
Thank you.
I can hear it. At least I do this where it's like I have that spark of idea, and almost immediately I come behind it and kill it, because I'm like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't work. Here are all the reasons why it's going to be stupid. Instead of allowing my brain to be like, no, maybe that could turn into something. So we're not going to kill it. We're just going to let it hang out in this space for a little bit and see what comes of it. So that was kind of the first stage, is
there are no bad ideas.
Yeah. It's so interesting being an adult, because when you're a child, you're full of ideas. And kind of so much is possible. So like when Emily and I were kids, we met in 6th grade. And when we'd get together on recess and we would make dances or we would make a song or something like that. And we were never like, let's have a meeting. Let's figure out what we're into. It was like, da 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 da. Oh, yeah. Well, oh, you want to make something? Yeah, that sounds good. And so we were kind of talking about that and that energy. And then we were like, why don't we go back to childhood and have our childhood selves inform who we are and what we want today?
Mm-hmm. So she was like, what would little you have made if you were allowed to like have pop culture in your life, basically?
Which we were not.
Yeah.
We were not allowed to have secular music or any of those things. So we kind of just like, you'd get little bits and pieces of secular songs, you know, because we watch movies. They were always kind of vetted movies. They had to be the right movies, but you'd hear, or you'd go to the mall and you'd hear something. So you're constantly picking up these little like these cultural ties back to popular culture.
Carrie used to be like, what's the word? Contraband music. But she would only know like little tiny pieces of songs. And it could even be that maybe it's like infomercials, and you know how they used to have, now that's what I call music or whatever. And she would just come in. I remember she would sit on my lap and be like, humor me and tell me lies. And I was like,
what's that?
I don't know what it is. She's like, it's a song. And now I'm like, that's Blues Traveler Runaround. But at the time I was like, secular music is bad. That's kind of fun. So we were like looking through songs from that time that we know now that we didn't know then. And that's, so it was like her informing the like, what would your child self want? And I was like, I don't remember anything. Why don't we go through top 40 music
from 1996
from when we met and she was like singing these songs, and so then we found one.
Yep, we did. Ultimately, like, what do we all want? We all want to feel connected. We all, at least I want to feel like I'm in a state of flow. And if left to my own devices, I get really serious. And so I almost need a person to play with. And it was like that back in 1996. And it's like that today. And you happen, I am lucky enough that I have the same person now. I mean, who can say this after like 30 years? Can say that I have the same person that I played with back then that I'm playing with today.
It's really crazy.
It is crazy. So
we're really lucky, like truly, and we know this.
Yes. Yeah.
But like, I think a lot of the times artists, we get in this place where we're like, we feel like an island unto ourselves. And with independent artistry, like with music and all that, and now you have to be your own social media manager, and now you have to be like this successful before anyone will help you, and you can't build a team because blah blah blah. But like, there are friends, there are people around you that you can be like, you want to play, you know? Because like, one of the things that I think popped up, if you guys haven't seen the video, check it out. It's on YouTube Shorts and social media whatever's.
Yeah, we made a thing out of this week.
Yes. So that's, we have a little like 1 minute music video that we made. When I'm alone, I'm serious. And I'm like, I am funny and fun. I'm trying to think of ways I can like make content, but why is it all turning, and the podcast even too, like, why is it all turning to like, well, I guess this is how music is made and creativity, you know? And I think it's because we weren't, like, we need a playmate.
Yeah.
We need a playmate to make dumb stuff with. And you probably do too. So finding people who are like, there are no bad ideas that you can, there are no bad ideas with, I think that helps kind of vet people, because not everyone is going to be your best friend from middle school. And not everyone is going to be exactly your fit for creativity. But one really good indicator that they're a good person to make something with is that they can say no bad ideas with you and like use that to work together.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because I think there's a difference between creativity and refining. In the generating part where you're coming up with all these ideas and there are no bad, like, great, let's let our imaginations run wild. Like, this is the time to be a kid again upstairs. And then at some point in the process, you refine what the thing is. And then all of a sudden, you're bringing in all the things you've learned during your journey of being an artist. All of that kind of, all those creative sensibilities. How is this going to play? How does this amplify the meaning? Like, all of those kind of like cerebral prefrontal cortex type thinking, which is not bad. I think it's, at least for me, it's easy to be like, there's either wild childlike creativity or there's nothing, because that's all there should be. You should be your freest self. Yeah, at times. But then there's also really something to be said for being able to have that discernment and that distinction between this is going to work, or this maybe isn't as effective.
Yeah, and we had a finite amount of time. So it was like, okay, we want to get something done because she's going to leave. So that helped having some kind of like, we have today. And that's what we're going to do. So we were able to take this like nebulous, make a thing. So we listed off like, we could do sketches, like we could do blah, 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 but we don't have time to like work out a sketch right now. So we decided to do a little music video. And then I went and took a shower and I had this whole idea, like storyboard in my head.
Because you do your best thinking in the shower, I am convinced.
It's true. Like you do. I've heard this from a lot of people actually, that it's like taking a walk or taking a shower. And I think, I mean, to be honest, part of it's probably that there's no one there to distract you and you don't have your phone. So you can just stand there and be like,
yeah.
So I came up with the idea of the storyboard and I came out and sat down and was like, I'm storyboarding. And then Carrie went just a little like, okay, and tell us about where you went with your brain.
I think there's this thought out there. I mean, I certainly held the belief of, if I love something, I'm not going to feel resistance to creating it. And that's not true. In anything that you do, there is going to be an element of resistance, because fear, there's something that's very vulnerable about making things. And I don't want to come across a fool in front of anyone. That's what it was for me. So we came up with several ideas. We did one video that was silly about different sounds we were making. And then we were planning this other video. And when we were talking about both the videos, I felt as in, like, remember the comic strip Kathy in the newspapers? How Kathy was always like,
and her hair was like,
That's how I felt. And my face and my mouth hole were saying, yeah, let's do this. But my body was like, oh shit. Oh no. This is potential that I could feel really uncomfortable, and this could turn out really bad. And then I will get frustrated at myself, and then I'll hurl more like guilt and shame at myself, like I do. And it's going to be so much easier if we just stay in, eat snacks, and watch television. That was my thought process. Except for Emily is really good about being like, yeah. When Emily sinks her teeth into an idea, she is really good about being like, no, I'm holding on and I'm not going to let go. So whereas I would be like, a nibble, that's a good idea, let's do something else, she's like, nope, that could be fun, let's do it. So
I'm like, it is the deadline too. I'm like, we don't have time. Let's go. And she didn't tell me she was feeling that resistance. I knew something was happening because you your countenance kind of changed a little bit and the energy changed, but I was like, okay, so I'm doing this now. And I just started like, you're out there, we can do this, and here are the shots that we're going to get, and here's where we're going to go. And I could feel there was like silence over here, but I was like, do. But then we were like, here it is, we're going. We only have this amount of time. So we went.
And it's like 17 degrees outside.
It was so
cold in New York. It had just snowed a couple of days ago. And so I'm literally in long johns and ski pants with a massive coat. And she's in like this emerald green, shiny coat that goes down past her knees.
And it has a hood, and it is waterproof, and it is plastic looking. And I call it my chrysalis because it looks like a caterpillar.
Yes.
That like, it locks you in. Yes. So
our faces are freezing. Our mouths are falling off. Like our cheeks are like
bright red and in pain.
Yes. My nose is pouring from only one nostril, which is weird. And so we walk out the door, we walk down the street, and Emily's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh shit. Are we going to have enough sunlight? This is not going to come together. This might not work. And if it doesn't work, I'm a loser. And it says everything about how valuable I am as a person. And
in my head, I'm like, I'm going to dance with my friend. And then we get like almost to the park where we were doing the first shot. And I was like, there are people here. Oh no. And I said to Carrie, like, little us wouldn't really care that much about people being here, right? We would be like, look, you can see how cool we are. And she's like, yep. But in my mind, I was like, that's when it hit me. And that it had shifted.
I was like, oh, hell yes. There's an audience. Let's go.
But then I was like, I'm going to forget this dumb choreography. So like, we had choreography in the middle of the video that both of us had done in middle school together. In fact, Carrie learned, like, some of it was stuff we had done together, but some of it was stuff Carrie had learned at her church and then taught me the whole dance to, even though I wasn't in the youth group that was doing the performance. And so I was like, I'm not going to remember this. It is the dumbest shit of all time. Like, it's stupid choreography and it's so great. And then I was like halfway through the park, as I'm worried about people like I don't want to walk through their shot, and like, because they were stopping and staring at us because we looked ridiculous. Halfway through that process, I was finally like, fuck this, I'm making something fun with my friend.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of all that until we couldn't feel our faces anymore.
I want to talk about the specific project that we were working on and kind of the implications of what it meant for us in this time, this place now. We wanted to do some kind of a dance music video to a song that was from the era that we would have been doing choreography, singing, all that stuff at school. But if you've been a listener to this podcast for any amount of time, you know that Emily and I grew up in a fundamentalist Christian, evangelical high control religion. And we went to church. We were in the same denomination of church. We went to the very same Christian school. And secular music was not allowed because secular, and when I say secular, for all the people that wouldn't know what that means.
Congratulations.
Secular means anything that isn't sacred in nature. So we're talking like top 40, any music that is not directly edifying God is considered secular music. So that's all music that's really worth listening to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were like, we want to choose a piece of music that is something that we had learned bits and pieces of when we were kids and would sing to each other. And that song for us that we decided on was Ironic by Alanis Morissette. And as we were listening to the song, we were also like, gosh, she sounds so free. Like the song, Alanis Morissette as an artist is so, like, I don't know anyone that has ever sang like she does. And you pointed out, like, no one else sings like she does.
In popular music especially. I'm sure artists exist, but use their voice in such a wide range and so like flippy and like weird and like it's not lovely.
Yeah.
Hardly ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anyone is allowed to do that,
right?
And,
because when I think of singing, and especially when I still think of it this way, but especially when I was a kid, you think, oh, a good singer, a girl who the sound she's making are beautiful, and they're feminine sounding, and they're just like it's very controlled.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Alanis Morissette, when she's singing ironic in a lot of her songs, I mean, that chorus,
she sounds like she's biting.
Yeah, she's like biting the words and almost chaotic, but not like you can tell when she's singing, you hear the freedom in the expression of the music.
Mm-hmm.
And how she chooses to interpret that music is just so full of freedom and individuality and choices and agency.
Mm-hmm.
And those were all things that, growing up in the religious tradition that we grew up in, we didn't feel like we had. We didn't have choices over what we wanted to consume, art wise. We didn't have choices over our bodies and how we wanted to express or portray our bodies to the people around us. We didn't have agency.
We weren't allowed to be angry. We weren't allowed to be
loud.
Yep.
Dominant, opinionated.
I mean, I was those things, but everyone hated me because of it. So it's whatever.
I mean, truly, yeah. You step out of line as a female in this tradition. And I'm not saying that there aren't constraints for men too in traditions like that, but there are way more for women.
And there are a lot of churches that aren't this, but not the church we grew up in.
Right.
So, the other thing that's funny about this particular song with all of this is I had no memory of this, but Carrie, go ahead.
When we were kids, I have a memory of Emily and I being in the back of her mom's car. Mom is driving, and we're running errands. We were driving around, and we were singing ironic, like the bits and pieces that we knew. And I remember your mom being like, don't sing that. And I remember it feeling very like covert and on the sly and like, isn't that ironic? Don't you think? Like this contraband of like we're doing something wrong, even though it's a song, like it's a song. Primary reason for doing this is fun collaboration, getting into the flow, moving our bodies, and being our truest forms of ourself as reminded to us by our younger selves.
Mm-hmm.
But also, to be creative is an act of rebellion. And in this time that we're living in, where it really feels like the human spirit is squashed in favor of these big political, misogynistic, power-hungry systems of oppression that are rising at this time, at least in the United States, they are. It often feels like really, really hopeless to oppose those systems. Mm-hmm. What can I do? I'm a writer. I paint. And our reasons for putting this specific silly music video together felt also like a reclamation of who we used to be now that we're 40-year-old women and can. And it's our way of reclaiming our agency, reclaiming our freedom from when we were children, using the same choreography with the same person, with the same song, and expressing ourselves. Like, play is a political act, I believe.
I think especially for women of a certain age, Because there's a point where we're supposed to just, in air quotes, settle down, be old, and like not be weird. Finding the things that matter to you, that feel fun, that feel joyful, that feel like I want to be this part of me. That's also rebellious, and it being yourself is an act of protest.
Yes.
When the world is asking you to not be. And we also recognize that among the marginalized people that are affected right now, we are among them, but there are people who within the last few days are in danger for being themselves. And we want to acknowledge that as well.
Yeah. And the we have privilege. We have privilege to be able to push into places that feel light and joyful. And I realize too that there are people like they're trying to survive. And we're not in that place. And so I feel like we need to recognize that privilege.
Absolutely. And at the same time, one thing that excites us about this is that we're in a place where we can use levity and joy and ridiculous behavior and cringe-worthy like fun to hopefully like lift the spirits of people that can't lift that right now. And so yeah, there was like an element of guilt to this because we're doing this around inauguration time, and I'm like, we're not allowed to be happy right now. And then I'm like, you know what? Actually, we need this fun. We need play right now. We need, and then people have started commenting on our video and talking about it. And it's like, we're trying our best to bring joy to a situation that there's not a lot of, for us, joy to be found in. You were talking a lot about flow and getting into our flow. And as 40-year-old women, getting into our flow also meant we laughed so hard that we peed like multiple times.
And we're both moms. We both had kids. So that might have something to do with it. Like the old pelvic floor.
She ain't what she used to be.
She really is not. So, but I had to come like, because we're dancing like fools on this corner where all the cars are going by, and when you jump around and then you laugh really hard
a lot,
then Pete just, and not like egregious amounts, although that happens sometimes, but like Pete just comes out. And we got back here to the apartment and I was like, I have to change my underwear and my pants.
And that's how you know it was a successful time.
Really, that's the only metric you need at this point. Did you pee or not?
When Carrie got home, she was pissed.
It really was. It's good to, because I don't want to say if you ever feel resistance, you need to push through it anyway, because I think that's not nuanced enough. There are times when our bodies say, I don't want to do this thing. And we need to know the difference between the wise woman of our bodies or wise person of our bodies is saying no. And when our bodies are saying, I want to do this, but I'm scared. Yesterday, making the video, it was, I want to do this, but I'm scared. I'm scared that I'll have nothing. I'll just have no creative ideas, none whatsoever. And then I will look a fool. And so I'm still really, because I'm really new to this idea of listening to my body and recognizing when it says yes and no. I will choose the option that is A, the safest, and B, doesn't get me in trouble with the people around me. And so this was a new-ish thing for me of being like, yeah, I feel this discomfort, but like we're also going to move forward in a way that's respectful to my body and my psychological safety.
in a lot of ways, I've been having to learn this and trying to learn this lesson. I keep having to go around these things, and I'm used to pushing myself into places I don't want to be in and then just dealing with that. Recently, I've been like, is this because I don't want to, or is it because I'm afraid? And I'm noticing, and sometimes it feels like I don't want to do anything, but it's not true. It's that I was doing a lot of things I didn't want to do, just didn't want to do. And so sometimes you have to like say, yeah, sure, I'll do that, even though I can't tell if I'm afraid or I just don't want to. And then be like, oh no, I don't want to do this. Sorry. I've had to do that a couple times this year, not this calendar year, but in the last 365 days where I'm like, oh yeah, I'll try that. No, I hate that. So yeah, I think that is important when you're trying to find collaborators too. Or like, is this a time where I am just kind of afraid to be vulnerable with this person so I feel uncomfortable? Or is it a time that I just don't mesh well with this person? Obviously, keep yourself safe and all that shit. But like, there are times where you're like, I don't know if I want to work with this person. And then you figure out you do want to work with that person, but we have to figure out what the boundaries are and what the levels are. Don't just say no. Be like, okay, what if I follow this? If they're abusive, get the fuck out, because I've been there too. But I've also found collaborators recently where I'm like, oh, we don't do this thing together because we're not compatible in that area, but if you do this and I do this and then we come together in this way, then that works out. And we get cool ideas that we never would have had on our own,
Yeah.
So it's important to listen to that voice in general, but when it comes to collaborating, like Carrie and I work really well together, and we just kind of always have. We tend to do the like, when you're freaked out, I'm not freaked out, which is very lucky. And we also have really different skill sets as well, that we're both strong people, but we tend to like, oh, I do that. Okay, great. Oh, I do that. Oh, what about this? And we kind of balance each other. Again, very lucky in that way.
Yeah.
But you can't find those people if you're not vulnerable with your looking and trying. So
I think it's also really important when you're trying to find collaborators to find people that you trust their artistic sensibilities. Because there were times yesterday that she was trying to communicate what she was going for, and I was like either not getting it or I thought I was getting it, but was like, I don't know if that's going to be a good idea. But I know her well enough and I trust her artistic sensibilities enough to know that, nope, hear her out, let it be what it's going to be, and we'll see. And then after a while, I was like, I see it. And I could like grasp it and hold what she was holding too. It was like right there. And once I did that, it was like, okay, yes, I'm with you on this. But if you don't have trust in the person that you're collaborating with, then I just know that she's not going to steer us in a direction that is off. I trust her taste. She has an eye for things. She has an ear like you wouldn't believe for things.
Oh, come on now.
And talking about you like you're not even here. And so that feels like, as a collaborator, that feels safe to me. That feels like home to me. And I hope she feels that way with me too.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But that's really important. If you don't feel safe with, or you don't trust the person creatively that you're working with, that's, I think, a harder condition in which to work.
Yeah, for sure. I think this relationship to me is like goals, right? Like, we are in a place where we can trust each other. You might be co-writing with people or trying a project with a new person, and you're not going to feel that synergy right away, but that's what you're going toward. To me, I have to be like, let's try it. And then the worst that can happen is I wasted a day. And I know people who've been in projects with people for years and they still don't trust them, get out of that project. Give yourself like some kind of timeline that you're like, okay, let's try this. We're going to try to write this little thing together and see how it goes. Don't get yourself into a lifetime partnership with somebody if you don't know you can trust them. I recently had a friend who he's like, I wasted like 5 years with this person. Oh. And he's like, I feel so much better and so much more creative when I'm not in that position. So like, take the time to explore. Be like, I could waste a week. I could waste a day. I could waste a month or whatever. Like waste. Just saying, there are no bad ideas. Let's try it. Because Carrie came with ideas yesterday and I was like, my initial reaction was like, no. And then I'm like, let's try it. And then it was great. And then sometimes it was like, let's try it. And she's like, that's not it. This isn't it. This is it. And then I was like, oh, what if this? And then we made something. Okay, this video is so dumb. This is what's the best about it. We're talking about this like it's our viral video that everyone wants to know how we made it.
Right.
And that delights me. We always plan on getting famous every time we do anything. Yeah. And that has not changed since we were 12 years old. And then we're going to get famous. But I'm just saying, like, there's, I think, some really hilarious moments in it that we did not plan. Like the one that's like 45 seconds in, we did not plan that. We were breathing in each other's mouths when we were like, let's try this. So get into a place where you feel safe enough as someone that you can say, let's try it. And then give yourself an out if you're trying to collab with a new person, and then be like, cool. Sometimes you just make one thing. Sometimes that thing sucks, but you want to try again because you had a good time. Sometimes that thing sucks because the person sucks that you're working with and it's not great. Get out. And not to be like, weird goals, but I do feel like in 40 years, nothing ever has felt like this good. So it feels like goals to me.
Yeah.
Will you marry me?
I do.
Yes. This was like, it was a blast.
It was. Is there anything better than feeling like you're a creative child again? And if you can find people that bring out that life and that freedom and are also encouraging you, that's the thing too, is like, I didn't feel like Emily was like, my ideas are the best and your ideas are subpar. Like, I felt that she was creatively respecting what I was bringing to the table, and I was respecting what she was bringing because I was so curious about what she was going to say next.
Same. It was, oh my God, you guys. Okay.
I'm constantly like, say more about that.
She literally,
more.
Say more was the phrase of the week.
Yeah.
Say more. Well, this has been a blast.
I know.
And I don't want Carrie to go home.
I know. I got to get on a plane this afternoon.
Like really soon, actually. Yeah. But we have a really exciting episode coming up next week. You guys need to tune in. We're having a guest. Her name is Olivia Harris. She is incredible. And unless something weird happens, that's what's happening next week. And onward we go. Be looking for more ridiculous content from these two crazy babes.
Honestly, dear listener,
woo, my friend.